The first transaction was between euro and pound, and this was based in Brexit shift, since the pound's decline. For exporter and Greece gets first loan payout as euro area looks to head on debt obtained to Bloomberg. The first is a report speech about of Dave Davis, and he is a Brexit secretary. This explains that the decline of pound have a benefit in the international competitive, although the pound down 17% respect to their currency, and this affects imports because the strength is for inflation go up. The other point is in this new is the immigration plan, but not important for in this new is important pounds decline. And the other news is about the Greece. It's the third bailout since 2010. The Eurozone authorizes the rescue 1.1 billion or euros in conditioned by International Monetary. But this notice is not as important as bond decline for our transaction. For this, we decided made a short, and this was based in that the euro was declined in function that the decision that the eurozone, but the pound was declined more than the euro for the tendency, and this decision was correct, and for this we want.
The second transaction of the week was dollar yen, and the notice we used to make this transaction was Japan stocks little change as China exports falter, yen rises. So this notice talked about the Japanese shares and the little change after erasing gains following Chinese exports data, then underscored the slowing global demand that reversed losses against the dollar, waiting on the earnings prospects of exporters. So the TOPIX index was virtually unchanged at the close in Tokyo, paying a gain as much as 0.9% earlier. The yen rose the yen rose against the dollar as China reports surprisingly weak September trading data, supporting the concern over the outlook of the global economy and increasing demand for safer assets. So Toyuka Takashi, a Tokyo-based senior strategic and Daiwa security, said that the yen was slightly strengthening when the yuan became weaker, and then the Chinese trade data was in focus with exports decreasing instead of increasing. So according to this article, the yen strength against the dollar and the yuan too. That means that the most convenient transaction to make is a long. However, the currency had a constant fluctuation tending downwards. So at 9 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the transaction, the yen had a big fall. So because of this behavior, we decided to make a short and taking advantage of the rebound effect but at the moment of the transaction, the currency started to recuperate.
Was between euro and dollar, and this was based in Sweden bond. European Union needs a new power balance after Brexit obtained to Bloomberg. In this new I'm recording about European Banking Authority, Paul Bolon spoke about Sweden like the new. And this new is about new stability in the European Union and the European Union after the Brexit. The transaction starts on Thursday and remaining until Friday, and was terrible. We decided made alone because I don't know. We think that was possible that the stability in European Union return with the plans and the other phase for the future. But the euro wasn't expensive, and this continuous decline was the biggest decline in the month, and it's the answer to the rejection of the Belgian region to free trade agreement with Canada, and was partly why we lost. and is a bit curious because several sources, but not confirmed, that Netherlands, Denmark, and Belgium want to leave the European Union. But this is a strong response and the wake they have in the European Union.
Well, the last transaction of the week was dollar and Canadian dollar, and the notice we used to make this transaction was Canada stocks fluctuate as oil really evaporates and gold retreats. So this notice talked about the Canadian stocks zero engaged to trade little change as energy producers fell from the highest level in more than a year of the offset and advancing the nation's lenders are promising results for the US banks. So the Royal Bank of Canada and Toronto Dominion Bank increased more than 0.2%. And the industry is the largest in Canada, making up a third of the S&P TSX index. Energy producers reserve gains of the early increase in crude evaporate, so crude futures in New York slipped below $50 per barrel as the dollar rose as much as 0.3% against its peers, making commodities less attractive. So the Canadian stocks values remain 16% higher than the US peers, with the S&P TSX carrying the price to earnings ratio of 23.4 compared with the 20.1 for the S&P 500 index, according to the data published by Bloomberg. So the fluctuation of the Canadian dollar was tending to the decrease since the 3 p.m. on Tuesday. So even though the article say that the dollar increased 0.3% against its peers, we make a loan taking account of the variant fluctuation of the currency for this day, obtaining gains, but after the transaction, the currency took a gain is decreased course.